What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode 3 of the Progressive Gentleman podcast. As always, we're your hosts, Dan and Matt. Thanks for taking the time to listen to us nerd out about music. We've definitely been gaining some traction as of late, and we really appreciate the support. Everybody who's been commenting on things, liking things, giving us some feedback, listening, of course. So thanks.
Yeah, and today's episode, we're gonna start a series we'll call General Transmission. On the episodes, we're planning on talking about the latest news in progressive and heavy music. Things like breaking news, single releases, new album reactions. I know we did some of those earlier, but as the year goes on and more come out, we'll talk about those and do some reviews.
Yeah, you figure, we do that end of year album reaction and review episode, and we plan on doing that every year that we do the podcast, but it's nice to kind of do like a first reaction as well. So I think that's kind of the plan in these episodes. But speaking of news, the first piece of news we want to talk about, it's a pretty big one. The recent breakup of just a monster band in the scene, Every Time I Die.
Yeah, this is pretty heavy hitting news. I was shocked to see that was happening, especially in the fact that they announced that they're touring with Underoath and Spirit Box. That was a pretty exciting tour, and they just had their new album Radical come out like late last year, so that's kind of it's a bummer to see.
Yeah, I actually most recently saw Every Time I Die on tour with Coheed. I'm definitely going to find a way to talk about Coheed in every episode, it seems like. But um, and yeah, they put on a great show. You wouldn't have picked up that there were any issues going on below the surface, but there's always something going on somewhere. So I have great respect for this band. I grew up, my cousin listened to this band a lot. She was big into Every Time I Die, bands like Brand New, AFI, stuff like that. So I had a little bit of exposure to them back then, but honestly probably didn't start heavily listening to them until that tour with Coheed. So I'm pretty much a recent Every Time I Die fan. So it's kind of sad that, they released that
Yeah.
record last year, and now, that seems like it's going to be the last record we'll get from them. So it's pretty
Yeah.
unfortunate.
It does sound like from some of the tweets and news that I've read, it seems like Keith, the singer, is kind of parted from the band, but that the other four kind of seem like they still want to continue stuff. So even though it won't be under the Every Time I Die banner, that they might like start something up and maybe make a 4-piece or pick up a new vocalist or something and under a new moniker and make some similarly heavy music. So I guess, kind of excited to see what they end up doing. Hopefully they do end up making a new band and start making more music, because
Yeah.
it is kind of sad to just think that the like 20 some years or whatever that they've been a band and they're just like all of a sudden no longer.
Yeah, and all of those guys are immensely talented. I mean, Keith included. So it's it's one of those things where you hope they continue to make something. Continue that creative outlet. I think for a lot of people in the scene, it's pretty important. Not just for your own well being, but your mental health. I mean, a lot of people in the scene, that's their creative outlet to sort of deal with certain issues that may even be kind of coming into play with this breakup situation. So hopefully they continue on in some way or another, all of them. And yeah, definitely will check out anything that comes out of this. But you mentioned that tour, so replacing them on that tour now, which was a pretty big tour. Underoath just released their new record. They're bringing Spirit Box along, and now they picked up Bad Omens and Stray from the Path to replace Every Time I Die on that tour.
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
yeah, I'm bummed that Every Time I Die is not going to be filling that slot, and part of me is like, oh no, they replaced one band with two, and I was kind of hoping that they would just fill it with one, because I really love Spirit Box and I want them to have more stage time.
That was kind of my hope too. Seeing Spirit Box get bumped up to like main support, but then have two bands under them, it almost guarantees that they're just going to have the same set time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. And I mean, I really hadn't heard much music from either of those bands, but after they announced it, I figured I'd go check it out and see kind of what what their sound is like. And I do really enjoy Stray from the Path.
Yeah, I was
That
gonna say
hardcore
of
vibe.
yeah, of the two, I mean, I've listened to maybe one or two songs from Bad Omens just because they've shown up on like some playlists on Spotify or whatever, and I don't, that's fine. But Straight from the Path goes hard.
Yeah.
If the hardcore kid in me like is pumped to see them on that tour, but then the 30-year-old in me is like, oh man, like I have to stay really far away from the pit and
Yeah, people, there gonna be some throwing some elbows and mowing the lawn and pinching pennies and all that mosh
all that
stuff.
crazy weird hardcore dancing stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, but no, I mean, I am still excited to see their set from a distance.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Stray from the Path and Bad Omens. Kind of like you said, I've never really listened to them, and from checking them out, I was like, all right, cool. I dig these songs that I listen to, and they give me kind of like issues. And
I was gonna ask who they remind you of. I got like volumes and issues vibes a
yeah,
little bit.
they have a little bit of that, like the gentiness in it, but they're like kind of that post hardcore, like I'd say heavier than A Day to Remember, but like kind of in that adjacent level of music where it's like kind of got some like hardcore punky vibes with maybe like some gentiness in there too.
Yeah, they do a little bit of everything in the scene. I don't know. I think it's going to be one of those bands where I need to see them live for it to click, which is fine. I've had a lot of bands like that in my lifetime, so I'm definitely interested to see the set and see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. And I mean, I think it's cool having a couple like a band or two that you're not that familiar with to go to a show. And like I mean, obviously you want to go for the headliner and another band and make it worth like the ticket price. But it's cool to like discover a band that you otherwise didn't know and you see them perform and like holy cow, these guys are good and they killing it live and that stuff. So, I'm kind of interested to see what Stray from the Path and Bad Omens do in a live setting and, kind of see them. And I'm sure that'll ignite my interest in them a little more as well.
Yeah, it definitely makes for an interesting mix for that tour too. With Straight from the Path being more like modern hardcore, Bad Omens kind of being like a mix, but mostly like a little bit more accessible. Spirit Box being Spirit Box, and then
They're doing their
uh,
own thing.
and then seeing what Underoath does too is going to be interesting. It is the voyeurist tour. Uh, I'm interested to see what level of classic Underoath we're going to get versus new Underoath. But we'll talk more about that new Underoath later on. I think we should maybe talk about this next piece of news here, which revolves around Haken. I don't know if there's any Haken fans out there. I'm a huge Haken fan.
I like
I
Aiken as
I
well.
had VIP tickets to see them come through, and then COVID ruined that. And then not only did COVID ruin that, but then COVID shut down the venue uh, that they were going to perform at, which was one of my favorite venues. So that's kind of
Oh, is it
a
at
double edged sword there.
Rex?
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, but anyways, Haken. So they're bringing back their original keyboardist, which I think is kind of cool. I always felt like he added an interesting layer to their music. They already do like crazy like BT Bam esque stuff as it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to kind of make for an interesting new sound. Well, not new sound, almost like bringing back the old sound. Um, but yeah, I'm interested to see kind of where they go from there. I'm hoping that this means too that we're going to get some new music out of them soon. They
Yeah.
released two records pretty rapid fire, so I'm not sure, but
I
I'm
did
interested.
read. I think it was on. I can't remember if it's Metal Injection or like Metal Hammer or one of those sites, but I did read something and that they said that with him rejoining the band, that it like reignited some creativity in them and kind of get the juices flowing. So I feel like, I mean, maybe not this year, but I feel like in the near future they're going to drop another album because if they're talking about the creative juices flowing that they got to throw something out at us here soon.
I'm hoping that like with how early in the year the announcement came, that we at least get a single, like a taste of what it's gonna sound like before the end of the year. But that's just kind of like the Haken fan in me, just hoping we get new music.
Yeah, new music's always good.
Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting. Go from exciting news back to sad news. Um,
Yeah, at least we're sandwiching it. We're like
yeah.
good and sad, good and sad.
Right. Exactly. Uh, Musician Meatloaf died age 74 due to COVID complications. I don't know how important Meatloaf was to you or anything like that, Matt, but for me, that Bat Out of Hell record, my parents used to play it all the time. I sometimes randomly get Paradise by the Dashboard Light stuck in my head still to this day.
Yeah.
So so it was a little, it was a little sad to see him go. I mean, he was 74. He was actually just recently at a Comic-Con that you and I have attended together.
Oh,
Um
was he really?
yeah,
Oh,
and he was actually due to come back. Um so
oh
so
man.
that was kind of sad. I know a lot of people are kind of upset about that too, just locally. But that's kind of a selfish reason to be upset for someone dying. But
Yeah,
it's like,
but
oh, I was gonna get his autograph, dang. But but no, I mean, he did a lot of important things for the scene that people don't even really realize. I mean, he's not a metal guy, but think about all the long song like Paradise by the Dashboard Light. Like it has tempo changes and key changes and
yeah, I think
uh
honestly, like for the time, I mean that Bat Out of Hell record, I think was it 77, I think it came out.
yeah.
So like for that time, I mean, I feel like he's I don't know that people would consider him like prog per se, but I mean, just like for that time, I feel like he's definitely very metally, and I do remember watching like um VH1 and uh MTV and seeing that, I would do anything for love, and that song is catchy, and I feel like that's one of those songs that comes on before a show starts and like the whole crowd gets singing
Yep.
and they're all like, the camaraderie of everybody all singing I would do anything for love. So I feel like he's got a special place in most rock and metalheads heart. So, seeing all the posts in the news about it, I feel like it's definitely a noteworthy piece of news, and it's definitely sad for all he's done for the world of rock and metal.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, yeah, like you said, he's not necessarily a prog musician, but he did a lot of things, that modern prog musicians do in his music. So definitely worth mentioning here. And he's definitely a guy that'll be missed, but his music will definitely live on. So uh
Also, that album "Bat Out of Hell's" artwork reminds me so much of the new Corpse Grinder solo project album. It's like the same color scheme. I mean, obviously the Corpse Grinder one's a lot more gory. He's got
right.
like zombies that he's like tearing to pieces and stuff. But yeah, just when I saw the new Corpse Grinder album, I'm like, this reminds me of something. And then with seeing all the news about Meatloaf and going back and listening to his records was like, oh my god, this is where I recognize the Corpse Grinder album from. It's like it seems inspired by it, or maybe they both just like the same color schemes. But
Yeah, he did have some pretty interesting artwork on his stuff too. So we
yeah,
can we can group him into the metal category just because of his badass artwork too.
yeah. Whoever did Meatloaf's album artwork, that man needs a raise.
All right, transitioning to good news again. Just keep that theme going here.
We're taking you on an emotional roller coaster. Strap
uh,
in.
the band Monuments has gone through a lot of lineup changes, pretty big ones in the last like what 2 years. Uh, they got a new singer. I don't think they officially replaced Ollie Steele, who left, but regardless, uh, they are releasing a new album called In Stasis. April 15th release date for that. It seems like it's going to have a concept. There's going to be some features on it, and yeah, everything about Monuments. I just really enjoy their music. Gnosis was such a good record, and the Phronesis or whatever that record, I like, or the Ammonusis. They have really interesting
Yeah,
names. Um,
they're like purposely complicated so that you don't know
yeah,
how to pronounce
like,
their albums.
but that the Ammonusis record, and I know for a fact I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, was one of my favorite prog metal records. Period. So I'm excited to see what their new lineup can do. Andy Chiswick, I'm pretty sure that's how he pronounces his last name. That's their newest vocalist. They've released a couple singles with him, even pre album announcement. And I like their sound with him. I like him really as a vocalist. Didn't
Yeah, I like
he
his
came to
vocals.
fame? He came to fame sort of on YouTube, didn't he? Or is that, am I wrong there?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I know he streams on Twitch. I actually watched a few of those streams, just like not realizing that he is part of Monuments. And he was doing like vocal covers and kind of like reactions and stuff like that on Twitch. And then I saw a photo of Monuments and I'm like, wait a minute, why do I know that guy? And like connected the dots and was like, oh shit, that's Andy. Is it Chiswick or Sizek? I honestly don't know how to pronounce it, but
I'm gonna pronounce it Chiswick until someone corrects me. But but yeah, honestly, that's how I first discovered him, was YouTube videos, and I didn't really know who he was. I just liked some of his covers a lot. So to see him sort of now headlining or fronting a band that I already know I enjoy, I think that's kind of cool. I know he's been in other bands as well and has had a lot of features for other bands, vocal features, but I'm excited to see like the first full record with him as a vocalist for Monuments. And we did get our first taste of that record. They did release a single off of it called Cardinal Red. Um,
yeah, the song is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty great. That's featuring Mick Gordon as well, is it not?
Yeah, it is. Mick Gordon is. I think he was on Lavos too. So
Yeah, yeah, yep. That's why I was like, is he on that one as well? But yeah, Lavos was like a single they released prior to this album announcement. I'm not sure if it's going to be on the record. I don't know if that was just like a hey, here's a taste with Andy at vocals, um, but yeah, I'm interested to see if that makes the record as well. Not a whole lot of Mick Gordon going on in that Lavos single. You don't really like pick him out there, but in Cardinal Red, you definitely get full Mick Gordon flavor.
yeah, there's definitely some very doom sounding. Like you go from Andy just like kind of belting out some like higher register clean vocals to going to his more like guttural growls, and then you hear Mick just come in there and slam you with the detuned guitars or down tuned rather, not detuned. But
For sure.
yeah, it's that song is really cool, and I like. I mean, I know in like the last episode I talked about I prefer generally it being like all growls or all cleans in my music, but if it's done right, I like when they combine it, and I feel like Andy is one of those kind of exceptions to that for me, that he's got a really awesome range and he's seems really good at knowing when to do which. And yeah, I really like this song, so I'm very excited for this album if they kind of keep with this sound. Especially with the fact that I saw they posted they're featuring Spencer from Periphery.
I was gonna
So
say another band for you that kind of mixes, but you're a big fan of, mixes cleans and gutturals, or however, whichever word
yeah,
is
whatever
best used for
your
that.
adjective.
That's um since it features Spencer, and yeah, Periphery is like another one of those bands for you. So
Yeah,
uh
I'm a huge Periphery fan, so I'm when I saw that I was like, all right, I'm really excited for this album already. Like I don't know, how much of a vocal feature he'll be, if he'll just like sing a verse, or if it'll be like a kind of duet for lack of a better term.
yeah. I feel like most features in metal these days have been like uh just like someone gets a verse, someone comes in and just or like screams for like a bridge into a chorus or something like that. Uh but yeah, I'd be interested to see to what capacity that feature is for Spencer.
Yeah, and I know like when we talked the other day, you mentioned about Mick being you feel like he might potentially be like a full time to replace Ollie since they haven't like officially done anything. Which like I'd be on board for just based off of the two songs that he's featured on. I really like the sound of them with Mick. So, I obviously I liked Monuments previously to them kind of losing Ollie, but if they need to find a replacement, I feel like Mick seems like a good a good alternative.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of speculation. There's no real background behind me saying that other than their last two songs they released were featuring him. So I
Yeah,
was like,
it
well,
just
something's going on here. I mean, he's either like a bridge guy, like until they find a permanent replacement, unless they already announced a permanent replacement and I just missed it, which is possible. I'm not like constantly looking at this kind of stuff, but yeah, just seeing him featured on the last two singles, I was just like, huh, I wonder if that's going to become like a more permanent thing. So I guess we'll see how that goes.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll find a good replacement, but it does seem just the fact that the first two singles are featuring him and they happen to also need a guitarist. It seems to just kind of make sense if they're able to make good music together and if they vibe well that and he's willing to join a band because I know seems like he does soundtrack kind of stuff and not like actual band performances. So, I mean, I guess it'd be pending if he also wants to join, but I like the speculation and I'm on board for it if that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, I just did a quick Google search just to see if they replaced Ollie, and I'm not seeing anything. So I do think that there is a vacancy. So either they're just going to have a bunch of guitar features, or we'll probably, I would imagine we would see something at least before they start touring for this record. So I guess we'll see how it goes. But we talked about Cardinal Red, so let's talk about some other singles that were released uh, since we last spoke with everybody here. The first one I want to talk about is not really a single as much as it is a cover. So Loathes released this like 3 or 4 part series. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but of other people covering their music. And most recently, they released one of Sleep Token covering "Is It Really You," and I had chills the whole time I listened to that song. It was amazing.
Yeah, I actually kind of forgot that they like the based on the song name, like I didn't make the connection that it was a Loathe song being covered by Sleep Token. I like when I listened to the song, I saw that it had both names listed and was like, this has some Loathe vibes, but it's Vessel being the singer, and I kind of just thought it was like a collaboration, not realizing they were covering it, and then like kind of dug into it a little deeper and was like, oh, that's why it sounds like Loathe because it's a cover.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't really know what I was listening to at first either. I just sort of read. I guess I found out about it on Instagram. Loath posting about it, and I read it as the first line says like a collaboration with Sleep Token. It says that, um, but then it says or it says a collaboration with other artists, and then at the second line it says like Sleep Token, it's a rendition of the song. So that's I wasn't until I read it like the second time after already listening to the song like twice because I really liked it, that I realized that it's just a full blown cover. And it's a really good one. So if you've not
Yeah.
listened to that yet, if you like Loathe, if you like Sleep Token, if you just like Sleep Token, really, I mean, they make it essentially a Sleep Token song. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely
Definitely
has
check that out.
some Loathe flavor still in there, but yeah, it's for the most part just it seemed like a new Sleep Token single.
Yeah, it's super good. Really, really good. And I know this next single on the list is probably one that you'll want to talk about a little more than me. That's that Haunted Shores single, Nocturnal Hours.
Yeah, Nocturnal Hours was cool. I didn't like it quite as much as Hellfire, but I thought it was definitely unique, and it kind of gets rid of my my theory that the album was going to be like black metal just based off of all the posts that they had, and with Hellfire having that black metal sound. Nocturnal Hours kind of, it didn't have any of that. It also had a like saxophone solo in there, which was not expecting, so that was kind of cool. I always enjoy when they throw in different instruments that you don't typically hear in metal. I like that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
that was
that
pretty
was
sweet.
probably my favorite moment of that single was the random sax solo.
I almost feel bad, like I should have probably prefaced that with like a spoiler warning. Just like,
If
there's
anything, I think it's more reason for someone to go check it out. I don't think you're ruining anything there.
yeah, it's just I wasn't expecting it, and listening through it was just like, whoa, that's really cool. So, I feel bad for spoiling it for anyone who listens to Haunted Shores and hasn't heard the single yet, but I definitely recommend going and checking it out if you haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. The next single, ERRA released a new single called "Nigh to Silence." For a second, I was like, "Are we getting another new ERRA record?" They literally just released a record last year, but that is not the case. They'll just be releasing a deluxe edition of that record that they released last year. I think it's gonna have 3 new songs on it, including this "Nigh to Silence" track, as well as 3 covers. Um, I I did look at the list of covers. I totally forget. I think we think one's a Blink 182 song.
Oh yeah, it was
Um,
Stockholm Syndrome, I think was or
yeah,
Stockholm or something like that.
yeah. So it's gonna be interesting. I think didn't we think one might have been like a Soundgarden track or something like that? I don't 100% remember, but regardless, when we did look, we were intrigued at what the covers were gonna be.
Yeah,
And
it was.
obviously, new era music is awesome. So
Yeah, and we were purely just speculating based off the song title. I mean, the names, there are multiple songs by different bands that have the same name, so it could be a number of different bands, but just based off of kind of the closest things we could guess from knowing that they're covers. I mean, I'd be on board for a Blink 182 cover by Era. I'd be curious to hear what that sounds like.
yeah, for sure. That was kind of why we didn't make any sort of note, because they just posted titles. They didn't post, like cover of this song by this band. It was just like here's the titles. So we were just kind of speculating which ones were the covers and what they were covering. So you can check out the information and the details on their website of the breakdown of the track list, and uh, maybe try to figure it out on your own and let us know what you think. But yeah, that Stockholm Syndrome track, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a Blink 182 cover. So I'm real intrigued by that.
Yeah, yeah, that would be kind of cool to hear.
So just about the single itself, I guess it honestly just sounds like something that would fit on that self-titled record, which was a fantastic record. I think it made both of our top 10 lists. I don't remember where it fell, but
Yeah.
you can check out episode 1 to see for yourselves. But little plug
Throwback.
there, but no, it definitely fits. I don't necessarily think it would have been a standout track on the record, but it would have not been like a bury this track on the record either. So it could have easily made the cut.
Yeah, it almost seemed like it was a song that they wrote to have it included on the album, and then maybe cut it and then realize like, we actually got something here. Like let's finish this song up and release it. Just
Yeah,
kind of.
that's kind of what I think this deluxe version is. It's just like songs that were good but didn't make the final list, the final track list for the record, and
Yeah.
now they're doubling down on it to get that music out there without just releasing like a separate EP, because it probably fits better with the music they wrote at that time period than just like throwing it on a separate EP.
Yeah, that would make sense. Doing a lot of bands do the deluxe editions and put on extra songs and do or like covers or whatever. So it's not like out of the norm. and it makes me want to buy if they press it on vinyl deluxe, I want to buy that too.
It is pressed. Pre-orders are live. I
Oh,
do not
really?
know. Yep, I do not know how many are left.
I
I
missed it.
did not make the purchase. I have the original on vinyl,
I do too, but I'm
and
a
I was
sucker for
like,
deluxe editions.
yeah, no, same. But I was like, I don't know if I want two copies just for a couple extra singles. But I mean, maybe. I don't know. I haven't rolled it out.
Still maybe.
Yeah. So this next single, is by a band that I think most people hold in like real high regard in this genre and progressive metal.
The old gent
And Gent,
daddies.
the ones that sort of coined the term gent, Meshuggah. They released their first single off of their new record, and it's called "The Abysmal Eye." What did you think of that?
I'm very excited for this new album. After hearing that song, I mean, it's definitely more of what you know from Meshuggah. It's they're just kind of heavy as hell, and is immediately just starts off crazy and stuff. But it's and they go hard for the whole song. And I know sometimes bands, as over the years, they kind of soften or change their sound a bit, but they're very much the same Meshuggah you know and love. So I guess if you're not a fan of Meshuggah, then you might not like this, but if you are, then it's more of their stuff, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And now I just want the album to come out.
Yeah, I so their last record was called The Violent Sleep of Reason, and that came out back in 2016, I believe.
That
And
sounds right.
I've been doing like album reviews and stuff like that on my own, just sort of for fun because I'm weird like that. Um, and they made my like album of the year list, my personal album of the year list back then, for Violent Sleep of Reason, even though in my opinion it's a pretty like average record. I like this single, The Abysmal Eye, more than anything off of that record. So I'm really excited to see sort of how the rest of the record stacks up to that single. Because if it stacks up, it's probably going to be something we're going to be talking about at the end of the year for sure.
Yeah, I was very excited with the single, and it had that bleed kind of like pacing, or it was just like crazy fast, and like lots of crazy like pauses and palm muting and kind of weird pacing and stuff that I love from Meshuggah. So I mean, I think everybody that likes Meshuggah knows bleed and and stuff. So if I think if they keep with this pacing and sound, that this album's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's a reason they arguably created a genre of music, gent. So,
Yeah.
um, like they definitely do it well, or do it probably better than most, if not any. So, and I know some people will argue, well, gent's not a genre. Well, it's probably not, but whatever.
I will
Um,
fight you, sir, and or madam.
we don't follow rules. That's kind of the whole thing behind progressive music, anyways, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so definitely excited about that Meshuggah record. And I did they announce a date? I feel like they did, but I don't really remember
Yeah,
what that date
I
is.
think it's I think it's April 1st.
Okay, yeah, that does sound right. But yeah, it's coming soon ish. So definitely excited to get my hands on that.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember that because I was like, is this actually happening, or is it an April Fool's joke? Like an early one. I don't like this. But they put out a
yeah,
single, so it's pretty safe to say that an album's coming out at some point this year, even if not April 1st.
yeah. For a while, they were on sort of like a every 4 years you get a record, like sort of schedule essentially. But it's been 6 years now since their last record, so definitely do here. But speaking, going sort of from one powerhouse to another in heavy music, Dillinger Escape Plan. So no, this isn't like an announcement of Dillinger being a thing again.
Which
But
is, I wish it was.
that would have been like the first thing we talked about. No offense to Every Time I Die breaking up. I do
Yeah.
think that's huge news. But if for some reason we were like Dillinger Escape Plan's getting back together,
Yeah, that would have been
that would yeah.
top of my list as well.
Yeah, but Greg Puciato from Dillinger was featured on Carpenter Brute's new single. Now I barely listened to this because it wasn't necessarily my style, um, but uh, but I know you listened to it a good bit. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I really like the 80s like synthwave, vaporwave type stuff. Which is what the type of music that Carpenter Brute makes. So it's cool that it has that kind of ambient synthy rock vibe to it, and then it's got Greg Puciato's vocals on the song, and it he doesn't really go heavy like he does on Dillinger Escape, but you can definitely tell, like if you listen to this Carpenter Brute song not knowing who Greg Puciato was, but you knew of Dillinger Escape Plan, you might listen to it and be like, why do I recognize his vocals? It's very, it has that Dillinger Escape Plan sound from the vocal standpoint. So I liked the mix. It's definitely not for everybody. If you aren't into the 80s sound, you may not enjoy this, but I do enjoy that. So I thought it was really cool and makes me want to listen to more Carpenter Brute now as well.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely it's cool to branch out outside of just heavy music too, and I listened to it out of respect for Dillinger Escape Plan, but while it didn't necessarily click for me, that doesn't mean it won't click for other people. So it's definitely worth mentioning here. And if you're a fan of Dillinger Escape Plan, or if you're a fan of like synthwave stuff, definitely check that single out. Um, but switching up to something more my speed here. Um, at least with this single, it's my speed. So North Lane came out with a new track called Plenty. I have probably mentioned at least once on one of our episodes that I am not a fan of new North Lane stuff. I did not like Alien. I did not enjoy that record at all.
I don't even actually
And
know if I listened to it, so I guess I guess tells you how much of a fan of it I was.
yeah, I mean it's worth checking out if you're a fan of North Lane just to see sort of where they progress to. And I'm not trying to knock it too much, just because I do know a lot of people liked it a lot. And that's perfectly fine, to each their own. But I was not a fan of the sort of heavy incorporation of synths and like effects and things like that. That's just kind of my own preference. But this new song, Plenty, actually, I really enjoyed it. It kind of stripped away a lot of the stuff that I didn't like about the direction that North Lane went into. And just sounded like the North Lane that I'm used to, that I love again. So that kind of has me excited for whatever next full length record they put out.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this single as well, and I know you said about not liking their last album, but listening to this makes me want to kind of go back and listen to it and get a feel for it and see like how their sound has changed, because I haven't listened to North Lane a ton. Um the stuff that I've heard by them I liked. It's just one of those bands I guess that kind of slips my mind and don't really think about it. But this new single is awesome, so I'm looking forward to this album coming out, and have to go back and kind of check out their discography again, check them out
Yeah,
and
because
see.
like they released a record called Mesmer. Like I think that was in 16 or 17 or somewhere in that realm. That was really good. And then um whenever they transitioned to their sound on Alien, it kind of, for me, I didn't really see there wasn't like a gradual transition. At least it didn't feel like that to me, to the sound on Alien. It was just kind of like a, hey, this is what we're doing now, which I don't
Ready
know.
or not.
For me it was just kind of like, oh, I don't like that, which is fine. I mean, I'm all for bands like getting creative and trying different things, because as we've discussed with like Animals as Leaders and bands like that, you if you do the same thing over and over and over again, it kind of starts to get stale. Um and it's not that it's not good, but it kind of you don't tend to go and say like, oh, I'm going to go listen to this record over and over again. Whenever it's like, oh well, I listened to their last record over and over again, and this one's not that much different. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good to see some evolution in a band. I mean, I know it's like you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't as an artist. It's like if you change too much, then people are like, "Oh, you changed. I like your old stuff." But then if they don't change, it's like, "Oh, you every album's the same." So I know it's like hard to walk that line, but I think it's good to have evolution and make new stuff that sounds different and evolves over time and stuff to kind of show that you've grown as musicians. And
yeah,
and I mean if plenty is a an indicator as to how they've grown and stuff, then I'm curious to see where they've come from because I really like that track.
yeah, for sure. And just to clarify on that animals as leaders comment, these dudes are like have like master's degrees in music composition from like Ivy League schools, and I know that everything that they do and everything that they put out is just top tier quality stuff.
Yeah, it's
So
not
I'm
like you're
not.
shitting on them. It's
It's
just
just when you're producing at that crazy high of a level consistently, yes, it's amazing and it's good and I'm going to listen to it, but for me it's like, well, where's like what's different, you know? So that's
yeah,
kind of what I'm trying to say. It's not that I'm not going to listen to it and respect the hell out of it and think that it's amazing musicianship because it always is going to be, but I know that. So it's like
yeah. I
where's
think
the, you know, it's like, it's not, oh, what are they going to do next? Like, well, they're going to produce some crazy, awesome, well composed pieces of music. I'm going to listen to them, but I'm not going to be surprised, you know?
yeah, I think like the problem is they set the bar so high right out the gate that it's just like, okay, well, now what? And it's like you enjoy it, but it's like, yeah, that was more animals as leaders. Like that's kind of the sound and stuff that I expect from them. So it's not that it's bad. I think it's just like you're waiting for a wow factor, but like they already hit you with like the biggest wow factor. So
Yeah,
it's just like where to go
existence,
from here.
their existence is the biggest wow factor. They're just
Yeah.
every time I go see them live, I leave saying, why did I ever even buy a guitar?
Yeah. They just make you want to light it on fire.
Exactly. But anyways, I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. It's not that they're bad or anything like that. It's or that they're stale per se. It's just I know what to expect. They always meet those expectations. There's never a big like switch up for me where I'm like, whoa, I can't believe they did something different like that. Like go get a sax solo. That's what I want.
Yeah. Borrow
I
the
want
idea from Hans Shores.
I want something like that. And I want Tosin to be playing the sax while playing the guitar. That's what I want.
He just make him even more like an insane musician than he already is. Give
Oh
him
yeah.
three instruments, see what he
Yeah.
does.
That's what I want. Um one more single to talk about. And that's a band called Arch Echo. They released a single called Red Letter. They are very much in that vein of like um your instrumental, your like intervals or your Four Giants or your Andromeda, um, instrumental bands like that, and they're very good. If you enjoy instrumental music, definitely go check them out. But this single, I think, it just dropped this week, maybe. Um, and yeah, it's a quality instrumental prog metal song.
Yeah, I had not heard of Arch Echo before. I mean, I guess I've heard the name, but I never listened to their music. And when we were talking the other day, checked it out and was like, wow, I really like this. Where have they been? So I now need to dig into their discography more because I mean that's the only song, at least that I know of, that I've heard by them. I mean, I'm sure they probably came up on some Spotify playlist or like shuffle play thing that I've done, but I don't know any of their songs like by name or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I first discovered them on like a bands you may know or bands you may like or some kind of like discovery playlist on Spotify, like you were saying, and or bands similar to, and that was what back when I was on like a big instrumental metal kick. That was kind of all I was listening to for a little while. and I think I was listening to Intervals or something, and they came on after that, and I was like, wow, this is really good. So I started following their music, and they have like a self-titled record that they released back in like 2017, I want to say 2016, somewhere in there. Which I feel like we're referencing those years a lot. Those must have been some solid years for music. Um, but yeah, there was a song called Hip Dipper, and I was like, that's kind of a really funny name for a song, instrumental metal song, but it was a banger. So that's another song to check out if you've never heard of Arch Echo. But definitely check out the single Red Letter. Expect a little bit of heavy, expect a little bit of like crazy cool instrumentation, just guitar wizardry. If you're into that
Guitar
kind of
wizardry.
thing, if you're into that kind of thing, Arch Echo is definitely a band to check out. But definitely want to transition now to some albums that dropped since we last talked. We kind of mentioned this in the last episode. Underoath dropped a new record, but we hadn't really had a time to fully digest it. I think I maybe listened to like 2 songs before the last episode.
Yeah, I think it
So
came out like the day before we recorded, maybe. So we didn't really
yeah,
have a lot of time to to get a feel for it and listen to it. But now that
yeah.
we've been able to, what are your thoughts on it?
So I just want to kind of preface this with this is sort of after like 1 or 2 listens through, and maybe a couple songs we listened to more than that. This is just sort of like an initial reaction. We do like our full, like thorough, like album reviews closer to the end of the year, just to fully immerse ourselves into it. Unless it's a record that captures us, and then we're just didn't have a choice. We chose to fully immerse ourselves into it. Um, that's kind of what this is going to be on these episodes. So that Underoath record for me was not one that made me like, oh, I need to listen to this over and over again. But that being said, I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Um, the last Underoath record I did not enjoy at all. So new Underoath for me was just like not enticing.
Yeah.
And especially since they're only chasing safety is such an important record for me. It's kind of sad whenever you see a band go that direction. But this new record almost was kind of a return to that original Underoath style to a degree, back to they're only chasing safety or define the great line era.
Yeah, I do feel
I
like it started to like backtrack to that sound a little bit. So I'm in agreement that I think they're kind of course correcting from the previous album. I was not as big of a fan of it either. I mean, there were a couple tracks on there that were pretty good, but overall the album was just kind of underwhelming. That previous one, but I did enjoy this one a lot more. I still is definitely not Define the Great Line or They're Only Chasing
No, and
Safety,
and
but
they'll never get back there again, honestly, because I think a lot of our love for those records are built in nostalgia too.
yeah,
I'm not gonna pretend like that's not the case. Because if those records did come out today with all the good music that we get, sort of modern prog metal and stuff like that, um, those records likely wouldn't really hold a candle to a lot of the records of today. But that being said, for the time that they were released and for what we were listening to at the time, those records were kind of iconic. So seeing them sort of return to that sound a bit, while it doesn't necessarily hold up to what or speaking for me personally, what I listen to today, it was kind of a breath of fresh air to see them kind of go back to that style. And honestly, they adopted sort of a little bit of like the modern like metalcore style as well. Like I got some era vibes a little bit.
yeah, there was definitely some of that in there. They they had some parts that were kind of like progressive. I know that's not like the category that they fall in, but they did have a little bit of that era kind of like hints of gent here and there, but yeah, for the most part it was, your what you're used to with metalcore. Um and there were definitely some cool tracks on there. There were some odd ones too that I wasn't quite as fond of. So I think that's why overall the album's like, oh, it's good, not great. I think if maybe they had like if they had those tracks that were kind of stranger in there, like kind of does some rap in the one track, and it's actually not the one with what was it, Ghosty Mane or however you say his name.
I think it just goes, but I think it's just like Ghost Main.
Oh, is that how? Yeah, I wasn't sure
I'm
how to pronounce it.
speculating because that is not that whole like goth rap scene. Like I don't want to talk about that to try to. I don't want to make anybody mad, but no, I'm just gonna. I don't like it at all. I think it's horrible for music, but
Yeah,
that's my opinion. I know a lot of people, even in the metal scene, like that because it's kind of a bridge to that genre. But for me, it's just they're doing two genres poorly.
yeah, I'm not a fan of that either, and like I was honestly surprised to hear that like the song. I forget what track it is, but there's one where he kind of has that like sort of rap flow to the song, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah, I didn't make any notes of that, so I don't remember which song it was, but
It was early in the album. I want to say it was like in the first three or four tracks.
well, I know the fourth track is the one with Ghost and there is like Ghost does like his little rap thing in there. Not like rap, it's like a screaming rapping style, whatever. So
Yeah,
if
maybe it
that's the
was
one
that.
I was gonna say if that's the one you're thinking of, then it is Ghost doing that. Uh and strange and I hate to say this too because of my disdain for that genre, that like style of music genre, if you want to call it a genre. I guess that's what it is. That's actually my favorite track on the record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I actually really enjoy that track. Not necessarily for Ghost Main's part, but it kind of fits in the song, and I enjoy the instrumentation in that song. I enjoy the different vocal styles in that song. Um, Parts of it do give me old Underoath vibes, minus the Ghost Main feature, which honestly I thought would completely ruin the track, but it didn't ruin it for me to the point where it is my favorite song on the record.
Yeah, I think for me, I really like, and I know you're not as big of a fan of it, but from Hallelujah, where they have the like kind of chant stuff, it gives me that like I don't know, like pop punk anthem feel to it. Where I mean, obviously the sound is not pop punk, but just like I could picture at a concert, everybody kind of chanting it, and I feel like that would be cool from like a live music standpoint. And then Thorn was probably like my other favorite track from the album. I mean, there were
Yeah,
several good ones, Numb and
Thorn was my
Pneumonia.
second. Thorn was my second favorite song on the record.
Yeah, it was really close for me between Hallelujah and Thorn. That chant thing just kind of gets me. I'm just,
And
how
you
you said you're a sucker for a male and female like synchronized chorus.
Yep.
That's like my thing with the like chanting. Like I don't know, it gets me going.
Yeah, I mean, I do like it in certain songs, right? Like in Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3. Hey, look, I'm talking about Coheed again.
How
Um
dare you?
like the sort of crowd like whoa like at the end
Yeah,
in that song, like that's like you could consider that sort of like a chanty like crowd vocal type thing, and that's one of my favorite parts of any live Coheed set. So, I mean, there are times and moments in songs that it works for me in, um, and maybe seeing them live perform it. I guarantee you they're going to play that live, right? I mean, whenever we go to see them on this tour coming up here, and I think it's what, March or May. It's one of those M months. Um,
yeah. It's in. I think it's like March 13th. I think is they're
yeah.
coming.
So maybe seeing it live will make it click better for me, or seeing like sort of crowd involvement with that might make it like give me like a different perspective on it. But that being said, I did not rate it like as my least favorite track on the record. So there's something to be said about that, where like the where Holy Roller, for example, like that little like weird intro to that song that people love. I hate it. That's like my least favorite song on that record. But um, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see kind of how it grows on me, because like I did say before we started this segment here, these are more reactions than full reviews. Towards the end of the year, we'll definitely immerse ourselves in that record a little bit more. But
Yeah.
that's kind of all I have to say about that record. Do you have anything else to add?
No, not really. I mean, it was kind of like I said, it was good, not great in my from my point of view, but I was surprised that I kind of figured it'd be more like their last album, so it kind of was a pleasant surprise that I liked it more than I thought I would.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So switching gears here.
Definitely switching
Um,
gears.
yeah, this is an interesting band to add into here, and I know there's a lot of Coheed fans that really enjoy this band. Coheed drop again, and Deer Hunter fans that enjoy this band. It's a band called OWEL, and they released a new record called "The Saltwater Well." Did you check this record out, Matt?
Yeah, I've actually listened to it probably like 3 or 4 times through. I really like it. I mean, it's definitely not in the same vein as a lot of the other bands that we talked about. It's definitely in the prog rock versus the prog metal category, but I really enjoy it for its kind of softer atmospheric vibe. And actually I've got my wife hooked on it too. She's like, "Oh, might be my new favorite band."
Oh wow,
And I
that's
was like,
awesome.
she kind of backpedals like, "Oh, well, it's too new of a relationship to commit." But she's nevertheless was very enjoying the new album. So
did you show her those Coheed covers that the lead singer of OWEL did?
no, not yet. I did mention them to her, and that was
Yeah,
kind of like I told her how I had discovered them was through you showing me those Coheed covers. So
yeah.
I'll have to play
So
those for her too.
that's actually how I discovered them, was them doing those Coheed covers and them getting posted on like fan groups and stuff like that. Uh, and then I checked out their music, and at the time I was big into Deer Hunter. I still am. Uh, but they kind of struck that same chord for me, and the covers are just fantastic. So if you do nothing else, if you're a Coheed fan and you've not heard their covers or his covers of, I think he did Light in the Glass and The Crowing. They're both, the covers are amazing. I don't want to be blasphemous and say that they're better than the originals, because they're probably not. Let's be fair. I mean, those are two epic Coheed songs, but
Yeah.
they're very well done. But back to OWEL instead of talking about Coheed, because I need to stop doing that. Um, this record it's the band itself is kind of like indie rock meets like some prog stuff. Like they're very chill. Like they're more chill than the Deer Hunter. Um, they, I'm trying to think if there's an even more chill band that I can compare them to that is still fair to compare them to, but we'll just stick with what I'm saying here. But my favorite track off the record was Time Will Make Children of Us All. It's got a very catchy chorus to it. It's kind of a relatively emotional song. I think it's sort of about like getting older and how, you're taken care of when you're young, but once you get older you have to be taken care of. So it's like Time Will Make Children of Us All, very deep. And the song itself musically is just fantastic. So if you check out just one track on that record just to see, gauge if you're gonna like it, I would suggest that be the one.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I do enjoy the album as a whole, and I think it's definitely an album for like chilling, and it's not like an amp up album like a lot of the other like singles and albums that we've talked about in this episode. But if you're kind of in that mood to unwind and chill, this is definitely an awesome album to check out and just prop your feet up and sit back and enjoy.
And it's relatively short too. It's not a crazy time commitment to sort of check this entire record out. I think it's only 38 minutes, 39 minutes. It's under 40 minutes. So I agree that I think it's a record that should be enjoyed sort of like front to back, like listen to the whole record. But yeah, if you just have time for one to just try to figure out if it's something you'd be into, Time Will Make Children of Us All is definitely my recommendation. But switching gears back to the heavy world, this is a record that you told me about recently, so I've actually not had an opportunity to listen to this front to back, but I know you have. The band is Mass Worship,
Yeah, I've been
and
seeing
yeah,
like Nick Nocturnal and some of the other kind of YouTubers were doing some reviews and talking about it. So I figured it's probably something to put on the radar, and I checked it out later last night, and it's real heavy. It's I enjoy them from a mix standpoint. Like if you read their Spotify bio, it says they're inspired by Mastodon and Meshuggah, which is a kind of crazy mix, but I love both bands very much. So it's like I definitely need to check them out, and I definitely I can see hints of Mastodon, but it's most like they definitely wear the Meshuggah influence on their sleeve. So if you're a fan of Meshuggah, like we talked about earlier, Mass Worship, it can kind of be your teaser and while you wait for the Meshuggah album to drop in April. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely one of the better albums so far. I mean, there haven't been a ton of releases, but for me it's higher up there on my list. Like I think Fit for an Autopsy is probably sitting at my highest right now, just like spitballing, not actually looking at numbers or anything, but this is probably like maybe second or third on my list so far.
nice. Yeah, that's pretty high. I kind of get like At the Gates vibes too, from the couple tracks that I listened to. But I definitely want to dive more into it because, like you said, you're a big fan of Meshuggah and Mastodon, and I am also fans of both of those bands. So, and I did like what I listened to. So, before I talk about rankings and things like that, I definitely want to dive a little deeper. But
Yeah, that
um,
was by no means a final order or
oh
anything.
yeah, final orders don't come out until the end of the year for sure. I mean, we've got a lot of good records on the horizon this year. But speaking of good records that were released, and speaking of favorite releases so far this year, uh, the next one I want to talk about is a band called Rollo Tomasi, and I have only relatively recently discovered this band.
I
I
discovered them last night when you mentioned their names. So
so I had a couple of their songs on my like like liked songs on Spotify or whatever. Whenever I'm listening to random shuffled playlists, if I like something, I'll just heart it whatever. So they show up in some of my playlists sometimes just because of that, and saw on the release radar playlist, hey, they have a new record, so I checked it out, and it is like way better than anything I was expecting to hear. Mostly because I was like, oh, I've liked this band before, but I don't really remember what they are or what they sound like. And then I started that record, and it is a trip, man. It's
yeah, they've got
like
a lot of different sounds and they cram it all into one album. I was not expecting that, especially after the first track. It was kind
yeah,
of feeling like Covet, kind of Pliny, those kind of vibes a little bit.
yeah. You get like relatively chill, like almost borderline prog rock vibes, and then the very next track, it's just like heavy vocals, and you're like, where did this come from? Like
Yeah.
I got and then there's another song on there where it's like, all right, I'm getting contortionist vibes, like language, like newer contortionist vibes, not like deathcore prog deathcore, whatever contortionist vibes. Like
Yeah.
not exoplanet era, but like clairvoyant era. Um and then yeah, you get like spirit box vibes, you like you said, covet vibes. There was a song where I got like Death Haven vibes, which was real random. Um and then there's a lot of like chaotic parts too where you get like car bomb vibes. It's very all over the place, which I kind of like, because there's like you get a different, you never know what's going to happen next. Which yeah, for prog music, I guess that can be a thing for sure. But yeah, it was intense. It was a trip for sure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that album as well, and that's another one that's kind of at the top of my list. I mean, like I said before, it's still early in the year, but I was not expecting to like it as much as I did, and there's some awesome tracks on that album, so
Yeah. If you
definitely
want
check it out if you've not heard of them, like I
yeah,
have not until last night.
the album name is Where Myth Becomes Memory, which is just prog. It's such a sweet name.
Yeah,
But
that's a really cool name.
if you want Covet vibes, listen to Almost Always. If you want Death Haven vibes, listen to Mutual Rain. If you want Contortionist vibes, listen to Closer. If you want to be surprised, listen to any of the other songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up what we wanted to talk about for the most part. I'm sure there's some things out there. I know there's been a decent amount of singles released. We just kind of talked about the ones that stuck out to us for the most part, but kind of talk about a little bit, what's next for us. I know we're going to that Underoath Spirit Box show, so we're gonna have sort of a tour review type thing in a future episode.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
excited for that. We can kind of recap our thoughts, and we can talk about, since neither of us really have listened to a lot of Stray from the Path or Bad Omens. Seeing them live will be cool, and we can kind of report back and talk about our experience with the show and stuff. I'm looking forward to that.
For sure. And then in another episode, we've kind of been in talks with some bands, and we kind of have some other bands in mind as well for this episode, where we kind of want to talk about some lesser known bands in the scene, bands that we think might deserve a little more exposure. So I think we're going to dedicate an entire episode to that. Smaller bands that maybe you have heard of, that you kind of agree or maybe you disagree that they deserve some more recognition. But I think that's kind of something we want to focus on a little bit. And yeah, why not dedicate an episode to it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that episode as well. The being able to talk about bands that you look at their Spotify listeners, it's like, oh, they've got 1,000 monthly listeners compared to some who would also, people would say, is obscure, like Intervals. I mean, they've got 150, 200,000 monthly listeners, I think. So they're not obscure, but some people might think that, because if you look at so the pop stars that have got like double digit millions of monthly listeners.
Right.
So when you find a band that's only got 1,000, that it's kind of like sad to see, especially when they've got such talented musicians. So I feel like this is a good opportunity to spread the good word of some hidden gem music.
Yeah, and who doesn't like getting new music? So I think that's just another opportunity for that too. If when we're talking about bands like ERRA and bands like Monuments and stuff like that, like, sure, maybe like two or three people that listen to this will be like, I've never listened to them before. But when we're talking about bands like Haven State, for example, I guarantee you, no, I'm pretty sure nobody on this podcast is gonna be like, oh, I listened to their last record, record last year, and I loved it. So, but I think they should listen to it. So that's just a little taste. That's a band we'll probably talk about, but
Yeah.
um, not don't want to give away too many more, but yeah, so I think that'll be good. I think that'll get people sort of exposure to new music, and that might get some bands some more exposure as well. So yeah, and then another thing that we talked about doing, we like sort of interacting with our fans and our listeners, and so we were thinking about trying to do maybe like a free music Friday type thing, where basically at a random time during the day, we're not going to like say like at 1 o'clock this is going to happen, just because we do have jobs too. We do have day jobs, but uh we're going to post like a download code or something like that to an album that we enjoy, probably on our Instagram story. We'll post a little bit more information on our social media whenever we fully decide what we're going to do there. But yeah, it'll just be sort of a first come first serve. Here's a download code for a record that we really enjoy, and just a way to get some free music.
Yeah, it's kind of share the love. And I mean, I know a lot of people have Spotify or Apple Music subscriptions and stuff, so maybe a lot of people aren't wanting like a download code and stuff, but I know there's still a lot of people that they just purchase albums outright. So for the people that do that and don't subscribe to a streaming service, this would be beneficial too. And if you're listening to the podcast and haven't checked out some of the bands that we've talked about, now is kind of an opportunity to hop on there and get a code and kind of give them a listen.
Yeah, hey, it's not costing anybody anything, so
Yeah, it
who
works
doesn't
out.
want something free? Whatever.
Yeah, free
Uh,
is always good.
Speaking of free stuff, we did a giveaway a little while ago. We gave away a Deer Hunter poster from their newest release, that Cycle 8, sort of the prequel to their new Indigo Child concept. And that went decently well. We didn't get a whole lot of interaction, so we want to up the ante just a little bit for this next giveaway. And I'm not sure when we're gonna do it. I'm thinking we're gonna do it whenever we hit 100 followers on Instagram. But there will be more details about this as well, and I think it's going to be something Coheed and Cambria related, since I always talk about Coheed and Cambria. And it'll be something signed this time, probably signed by Claudio Sanchez, at least. So
Ooh.
be on the lookout for that. I'm obviously a big fan. If I could enter the contest myself, I suppose I would, but I guess I already own it, and I'm giving it away, so it kind of doesn't make any sense. So
you like, I get to keep it. Yeah, I win.
So hopefully we get a little bit more interaction this time, a little bit more participation, and we'll go from there. But yeah, we'll post it once we come up with what it is going to be and when sort of we're gonna give it away. But be on the lookout for that, and yeah, we'll definitely do more giveaways as well in the future. I've been sort of looking at what, or kind of like coming up with a plan of what to give away. We got some Contortionist signed stuff for all the Contortionist fans. I have a lot of stuff. So
Yeah, mostly be probably assorted bands that merch that
yeah,
we kind of the bands that we talk about on our episode. It'll be probably something related to one or multiple of those bands when we do giveaways. So who doesn't like to win free band merch?
absolutely. And to wrap up, to kind of help us with that, continue to give away stuff and give back. We'd really appreciate anybody subscribing to our podcast on any of the platforms. It really helps us out, getting us some more exposure, as well as follow our social medias. Instagram, we are Progressive Gentlemen, and Twitter, we are at ProgGentPod. Continue to interact with us there. Follow us for updates, for podcast related things, giveaway related things, news, any of that stuff. We try to post on there as much as we can, and we definitely would appreciate some interaction, some feedback.
Yeah, I definitely think Instagram is probably the best place. It seems like that's where most people are using and interacting, but we do have a Twitter that we regularly check and tweet from as well. So feel free to message us on either platform, but Instagram seems to kind of be where all the conversation is.
Yep, absolutely. So again, everybody, we appreciate the support. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to us, and please like, subscribe, follow, all of that fun stuff. And
Yeah, and if give us 5 stars preferably. If you don't like it to give enough to give 5 stars, that's fine. But please rate us on the different platforms that you use. It helps us out so that when people search for music podcasts, they'll our name will pop up the more reviews we have. So please rate us on those.
yeah, absolutely. And we are getting a little bit of traction. We've got some ambassadorship stuff in the works. We got some sponsorship stuff in the works. Some bands reaching out to us for reviews, interviews, things like that. So hoping that the content sort of continues to ramp up, and the more you guys support us, the more you guys like, follow, rate, subscribe, all that fun stuff. The more doors open for us to provide better content. So anything you guys can do is appreciated, and we look forward to giving you another episode soon. But for now, take care. Thank you so much.
Thanks.